May it please the court, counsel, members of the jury, Your Honor. This case is about choices. The choice that was made today, made by the defendant on May 25, 2018, that shattered the dreams, career aspirations, and ruined her, Miss Germain's life, which was supposed to be her most memorable day, a graduation celebration. That all was shattered because of defendant's choice on May 25, 2018. This is the case we bring in front of you is a battery case against the defendant. As a plaintiff, we understand that we have the burden of proof by the preponderance of evidence of each element of the charge in this case. There are four elements: offensive act, harm, intentional deliberate act, and causation. And throughout the day, you've seen, based on evidence and totality of the total facts, that we not only proved by preponderance of the evidence, but we actually showed you that this was a plot well planned by the defendant. So what does preponderance of the evidence mean? This is we needed to prove more likely than not that the defendant poisoned Miss Germain. Think of it as a scale. So if the scale tips on our favor, even slightly, you must find defendant liable for battery. Now let's look at the back of the facts and circumstances that was presented to you today, and which you will be using in the deliberation room. That proves that the defendant very well plotted this thing against Miss Germain. First, defendant claims when Miss Germain asked, and you heard that today from the witness's testimony, when Miss Germain asked what was in the brownies from the defendant claimed that she couldn't remember. She'd even say, and this was not the first time she asked on May 26th after the party. She even asked at the party when Miss Germain handed the specially packed in a plastic bag brownies that were made for Miss Germain. And she said there's only special ingredients there and all the good stuff. She didn't get into details, and she claimed that she couldn't remember what she put into it. But she could conveniently remember the events that happened 4 years ago when, during the party till you puke event, and to point out the blame to the drinks that Miss Germain drank on May 25, 2018. Well, on May 25, 2018, that was not a party till you puke event. That was a party of graduation celebration when Miss Germain had only 2 drinks throughout the course of 2 hours. But look into the timing of the events that happened. Miss Germain was offered specially made brownies by the defendant at 10 a.m. Miss Germain started experiencing extreme vomiting and feeling sick at 10:30. That's about 30 minutes, less than 30 minutes. And guess what? Epic syrup that was inside the brownies that the defendant put when she baked the brownies, they caused 20 to 30 minutes after consumption, extreme vomiting. So the syrup itself causes extreme vomiting after consumption, within 20 or 30 minutes. That's exactly what happened to Miss Germain. And also, you heard from the testimony from the witness, from the defendant herself, that she claimed a person would know if the brownies contained Epic syrup because it was different. She didn't know how to taste, but she knew that people would know. And that's exactly what happened with Miss Germain. She knew exactly that something was wrong, and it was not her extreme vomiting. It wasn't regular vomiting. Extreme vomiting. It was not caused because of her 2 drinks that she drank throughout the course of 2 hours. But it was something else. She just couldn't figure it out. She tried to narrow down the list and see what she might have consumed and ate that could have caused her extreme vomiting. And that's when she reached out to the defendant, and the only response the defendant gave is cursing, being aggressive, and claiming that she couldn't remember. Second, defendant claims that she treats everybody as a family in her class, that she's nice to everyone. Really? Is it really believable? She claims that she brought specially made brownies just for Miss Germain. Really? And if she truly treated Miss Germain as a family, would a family member stand and watch a family member in extreme pain, feeling sick, extremely vomiting, being dizzy and anxious, and mocking there in the party on May 25, 2018? And not only that, going back in the next morning and posting on social media that Miss Germain, aimed at Miss Germain, that she had to learn her lessons. Belittling her. That's not a family. That's like treating somebody with, that's more like treating someone when you have a grudge or want to take someone down. It's exactly what happened. And she knew that was going to happen. Why? Because she claimed earlier during the conversation with the host that ipecac syrup produces extreme vomiting within 20 to 30 minutes. She knew that. Why? Because her dad used that medication. Or it was like in her dad's medical medicine cabinet. But now, that's not it. Well, from this evidence now we know that this was not a way to treat a family member. This was a deliberate act to humiliate and embarrass Miss Germain because she was with her ex-boyfriend, who happened to love and have an affection towards Miss Germain. They happened to enjoy their time. Now, defendant claims that she didn't have any affection towards her ex-boyfriend, and she didn't care about Miss Germain's and Justin's, her ex-boyfriend's relationship. Was it really believable? No, it was not. Because you saw from the evidence presented today that she even mentioned Justin and Miss Germain's relationship during the conversation when the defendant had with the host, that maybe ipecac syrup could benefit a would-be Lady Gaga, referring to Miss Germain, who was Justin's new girlfriend. Obviously, she didn't like that. Well, she had to do something to prevent this happy relationship and connection. Now, did this all cause the poisonous ipecac syrup that was put in the brownie by the defendant? Did it really cause the extreme vomiting? Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And you saw from the evidence today, because Miss Germain stood on the witness podium and testified that her her vomiting caused after drinking is different than extreme vomiting that was caused by ipecac syrup. Yes, she drank. Yes, she vomited before in the past because of the drinks. But this was too sudden of extreme vomiting, and it was so extreme that she couldn't even recover for almost 3 hours after she got poisoned by the defendant. Therefore, members of the jury, based on the circumstances and facts presented to you today by the witnesses and the testimony, we proved by preponderance of the evidence that defendant did indeed intentionally poison Miss Germain and ruin her life and career aspirations. Yes, and therefore we would like to ask you to find defendant guilty. Thank you.